There is an inspirational quote by Benjamin Franklin which talks about the value of preparation. It goes, "By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail." Since we're discussing recruiting etiquette in this video, there are specifically 5 areas that we'll touch on: attire, punctuality, research, execution, and follow-up. And the objective is to make sure you are well prepared for the journey ahead. So let's talk about attire. We all know first impressions are lasting impressions. Mastering business professional attire is probably one of the easiest aspects of recruiting etiquette you can control. If you look at the diagram, you can see that for both men and women, a classic choice of shirt is white or light blue. One should stay away from dark colors or shirts with patterns and embellishments. With regards to suits for men, a solid navy blue or dark gray or a conservative pinstripe suit is suitable. For women, solid navy blue, solid gray, or black is acceptable, whereas for men, black suits are not acceptable as business attire. Everyone should keep in mind that your suit needs to fit properly. Even if it's an expensive suit, if it is ill-fitting, which means it's too tight or too big, it will not work. For belts, black, brown, or cordovan leather is classic and recommended. Belt buckles should be gold or silver, and socks must match your trousers. We also recommend that students, both men and women, carry a portfolio containing resumes. In terms of footwear, again, black, brown, and cordovan for men. Classic styles are cap toe and wingtip. And for an interview, it's best to stick to black or brown shoes. For women, in terms of accessories, avoid any jewelry that could seem distracting. Makeup and hair should be relatively natural, yet polished. And again, we recommend carrying a portfolio. Big don'ts are to stay away from metallic colors and provocative styles. In terms of footwear, black, dark blue, dark gray are acceptable colors. And of course, big don'ts, no sandals, flip-flops, boots, or tennis shoes. Believe it or not, each of these images illustrates a faux pas that our office has encountered with students. So, pants, yes, we've seen students in pants that are too tight, leggings, leather, bright colors, and shorts. Skirt, we say it's not appropriate for anyone to wear anything short or tight or in bright colors. Tops, tank tops are not appropriate, bright, faded colors, vintage tees, not appropriate if you're looking to work with someone or meet a recruiter or a hiring manager. Shoes, we've encountered sandals, Uggs, sneakers. No, don't fall into that category. Don't wear any of these when you are getting dressed for it may be an informational interview or a real bona fide interview. And also when it comes to accessories, bright colored makeup and nail polish are great, but maybe not so great for a professional environment. Also, overpowering perfume and cologne, messy, unkempt hair, again, just not appropriate for this setting. So question for you. How early should you arrive for an interview or a recruiting event? 45 minutes, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, or on time? So let me make this easy for you. Let's just throw out 45 minutes and on time. We highly recommend 15 minutes. That's always safe. If you get there more than 15 minutes in advance, and especially if you're in the New York City area and you're in a lobby, you should look to facilitate the check-in process and hold off on contacting your contact within a company until 15 minutes before. Recruiters, as much as they think it's great to see students who are punctual, sometimes get thrown off by a candidate who arrives too early. So again, our advice to you is to get there at least 15 minutes early. If you do get there before that, make sure you check in and go through the security process. However, reach out to your contact once you hit that 15-minute mark. As I mentioned, with regards to punctuality in the city, you have to allow plenty of time for you to arrive to events and appointments on time. In cities like New York, there's always some security process and you always need to register, so allow plenty of time for that. You don't want to get to an appointment and be frazzled because you run in late. And also, if you think about being punctual, there are other things that matter as well. So when you're punctual, you can plan ahead, you can arrive a few minutes early, register, but most importantly, you can take a few minutes to calm your nerves, and reflect on the objective of either your interview or your meeting. Probably rehearse in your mind an introduction, think about a topic or two, a light topic or two that you can discuss with whoever it is you meet first. So if it's a current event or if it's something interesting that happened on the train or on your way to the appointment, you can actually think about it and frame out a conversation to break the ice. So being punctual is very important for your interview and your recruiting process. So another question for you. How much time should you spend doing research before an interview or a recruiting event? Do we say half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, or who knows? The correct answer here is there really isn't a right answer. You should prepare accordingly for each opportunity to make sure that you're prepared with thoughtful questions and insight on each company or each role that you are discussing. So whether you take half an hour or 2 hours, it's really up to you and what will make you feel more comfortable and informed during that situation. When it comes to research, our office has received feedback from recruiters and company representatives where they've said, tell students to do research. Don't just do a quick Google search and feel confident and comfortable enough in terms of their knowledge of a company, an industry, or a function. From what we hear, hiring managers, recruiters, they can see through this very quickly. And to them, it's a question about your commitment to the company or your commitment to the role. Here's a list of some resources that you can use. Some of them are CDC resources, some of them are Fordham Library resources. But these are helpful just to give you more insight and help you come off as more informed during an encounter or an appointment. Our office is open and happy to help students and direct you through the research process. These are just a few places where you can start as you conduct your research. Here are some tips to help you during the execution phase of your job search when it comes to email, telephone, and in-person interactions. So with regards to email and telephone, universally, hey is not an acceptable greeting. We see it all the time. We hear from recruiters and hiring managers who say, what does this mean? This is not professional. So let me save you any embarrassment. Just don't use hey. Hello, dear, etc. Those are all appropriate. And also, when you're engaging in these types of exchanges, think about the tone and language of your email messages and telephone calls. They should be professional and confident, but not robotic. With regards to email, your email should always contain a subject line that should be clear and brief. You should, with regards to email, if someone emails you, you should aim to respond to them within 24 hours. If you need more time to address a response or to address a query, you can let the sender know you are researching information and you will get back to them on a specific date and time, and be sure to do so, to follow through. Lastly, the reply to all feature is very convenient, but also be cognizant when you use it. If you are responding to an email where there are individuals who are copied who do not need the material that you are emailing, just be sure to remove them from the distribution list. Again, always be cognizant of who is relevant and who is not relevant during these types of exchanges. With regards to telephone interactions, one of the first points that I will touch on is that you should make sure your voicemail box is active and that you have a professional greeting recorded. I can't tell you the number of times recruiters reach out to our office to say, hey, we're really interested in student X. However, we've emailed, we haven't heard back, and we've called, and we get the message saying the voicemail hasn't been set up yet. You don't want to miss out on any opportunities when it just takes something as simple as setting up your voicemail. I have an example here of a voicemail greeting that you may use. Feel free to tweak it and use what's appropriate for you. But, for example, one can use, "Hello, you've reached Zena King. I'm currently unable to take your call. Please leave your name, phone number, and a brief message, and I will return your call as soon as possible. Thank you." It's as simple as that. In terms of other points I will touch on, when you're conducting a recruiting call, make sure you're in a quiet location, and if you have scheduled a call at a specific time period, be sure that you are there at that specific time. When you do speak, a little recruiter tip for you, be sure to smile. The person on the other end of the line will notice. Trust me on this one. And lastly, this is another issue that we've run into and we've had to work with recruiters on. If you call someone and leave a message, please, please, please leave your name, the reason for your call, and your contact information. All three of those items are important. And yes, you may laugh, but trust me, we've come across many instances where a student leaves a message and they don't leave their name, or they leave their name and they don't leave their contact detail. So again, this is an easy win for you during this process. Lastly, in terms of in-person interactions, here are a few tips for you. When you meet someone, you should start with a firm handshake and direct eye contact. Again, this may seem obvious, but in certain instances, we've seen students who have not done this, and we've received feedback from employers and recruiting partners on this. Also, show interest and enthusiasm by smiling and maintaining confident body language. You may be talking to someone about an opportunity that you think, hey, that may not be right for me, but please do not ever give off the signal that you are not interested in that person or that conversation. If you are having a conversation with someone, there are appropriate ways to exit a conversation that don't involve, there are appropriate ways to exit that conversation. Also, another tip, always arrive paired with a pen, paper, and any information that will contribute to a productive meeting. You should never arrive to a meeting with a contact, with a recruiter, a hiring manager, and come off as unprepared, because what that would mean is, hey, what will this person do in my job? Also, when you are at an information session or an other recruiting event, this is one of those times when it pays to be a student. You can walk up to business representatives and simply introduce yourself with your first and last name and extend in your hand for a handshake. Again, it pays to be a student in these situations. Lastly, some points for discussion that you may consider. You should always go to one of these, to an event or a networking event or recruiting event with something in mind that you want to discuss, or some sort of intention so that you can have a plan. Possible points of discussion could be commenting on some of the material that was presented during the event. If you meet someone and you'd like to follow up with them, a great tip is during a conversation with them, make sure you tell them something memorable and appropriate about yourself, which you can later reference in your email follow-up. And also, it's always great to ask well thought out and open-ended questions, as that prolongs conversations and again shows your interest level. So at any event where you may be, whether it is at an interview, a networking event, or an information session, you should always, always, always be prepared to answer the following 3 questions. First question, tell me about yourself, also known as your pitch, your story, walk me through your resume. Second question, why do you want to work for our organization? And your answer needs a little bit more depth than because it's a great organization or because I have friends who work here. Lastly, why do you want to work in this industry or function? Again, you need a well-prepared response for this. And this is one of those questions where you can prepare once and be ready to go for any situation that calls for it. These questions were taken from a book called The 2-Hour Job Search, which was written by Steve Dalton. So if anyone has any thoughts on this, or they'd like to read more about these questions and the occasion and the reason why you would use them, feel free to reference that book. Otherwise, you are welcome to make an appointment to meet with a career advisor to discuss these questions if these are on your mind and you want to be prepared for future interactions where they may be called for. There are 6 things that you should avoid doing at all costs. First is monopolizing a business rep's time at an event. Second is distributing resumes when you are at an event where it's not appropriate to do so. Third is asking about sponsorship. 4th, abbreviating the name of your program. 5, asking for a job when not appropriate. And 6, forming a mob around company representatives. We will go through each of these and talk in detail about why one should avoid them during the recruiting process. The mob. This illustration is perfect. It's spot on. I've actually seen this happen so many times. The feedback from recruiters to our office is, I love coming to Fordham. I love it because I feel like a rock star while I'm here. However, it's also very intimidating and uncomfortable. Recruiters will say, it feels great. We have an information session. There's time for Q&A. There are 2 or 3 questions given. And then afterwards, there's a mob that surrounds me. And everyone has a question, or everyone wants to give out a resume, or everyone wants to say their name so I remember them during the selection process. It's not the best look. So here's what we say to that. Think about it before you approach a recruiter. Make sure you actually do have a bona fide question or comment. Don't charge at company representatives. If you look over and you see a partner from Deloitte is surrounded by students, don't go join the circle. Look for someone else who's there who's not as swamped or as mobbed. When you do have an opportunity to have an exchange with these individuals, don't pepper them with questions and don't hand out your resume unless they give permission and unless they're accepting it. The monopolizer. What can I say about the monopolizer, except this is someone who comes off right away as not being a team player. They tend to appear whenever there are information sessions or recruiting events. They sometimes don't even attend the full event, but at the end of the event, they are the first person who is in line to speak with the recruiters and business representatives, and they monopolize the time. They monopolize the questions. At the end of the day, they're the only people who matter, and the recruiters notice that. And trust me, being a former recruiter, individuals like that are not always smiled upon. Sometimes a recruiter will remember that person and say, oh yeah, that was the one kid who took up all my time at the event. He's definitely not someone who fits into the culture here. So this may be your strategy, that you will find a recruiter, find a partner, find a managing director, and corner that person and tell them your entire life story. But it may backfire, so be careful with it. So we refer to this offender as the master in abbreviations. Again, when you attend information sessions, recruiting events, etc., there is usually time for Q&A. And this is when the master in abbreviations, or MSA, tends to appear. These are individuals who stand up to ask questions and either mumble or muffle the program they're in, and the person they're speaking to has no idea if they're studying business analytics or global finance. Hence, when you are at one of these events, please be sure to introduce your program without abbreviating it. So for example, if you're in the Master's in Accounting program, don't say, my name is Zena King, I'm an MSA student. My name is Zena King, I'm a student in the Master's in Accounting program. The same goes for all of the other programs. The one exception to this is students who are in the MBA program. And that's just because an MBA is universal across business schools, across geographies. So it is easily understood when a student says, I'm an MBA student, what that means. Whereas other programs, the titles may vary from school to school or geography. So be sure to state the full program. The sponsor. It is understandable that if you are an international student and you are compiling your target company list, or you are interested in applying to a company, that you want to know whether or not they will sponsor H-1B visas eventually. However, the time to ask that question is not during the recruiting process, not during an information session or recruiting event on campus. There are various resources that we have, such as Going Global, where you can find this type of information. And in addition to that, employers tend to indicate with their job postings whether or not they are willing to sponsor for a role. So that's not one of those questions that I would utilize at an information session or a recruiting event. While we're at it, I would also say questions where you should not ask. Compensation, don't ask. Work-life balance, every company will tell you we're big proponents of work-life balance. Here's why it's so great to work here. But they also look at you as the low man or the low woman on the totem pole. And so their thought is, well, you come in and you take vacation when you can. You take time off when you can. We'll be understanding about it. But if you're starting to ask that question too early in the recruiting process, it kind of raises a red flag to those individuals. Also, don't ask about your personal circumstances in large group settings. You can always do that at a later date. Lastly, do not ask about information that is readily available on a company's website or information that you could easily garner through research. That is something that does not come across well at all. The resume offender. What can I say about this person? This is someone who is always ready to hand out a resume regardless of where they are or what they're doing. This is great in a sense that you're out there, you're working on marketing, branding, and you're comfortable delivering your resume or your materials. However, there are occasions when it's more appropriate to deliver your pitch versus a resume. In addition, there are events such as information sessions. It's typically not appropriate to distribute your resume. I can go into legal reasons why recruiters try to shy away from collecting resumes at these events, but just trust me on this. Lastly, if you are at an event and you've had a great conversation with a business representative and they ask for your resume, then you should definitely take their contact information and follow up promptly with your resume. That is one occasion when it's appropriate to do so. Something else that students should avoid doing during the recruiting process is asking for jobs or internships prematurely. You'll notice as you become a more savvy networker that it takes time to build a relationship. So it's not a transactional activity where you meet someone one time and you follow up with them, sending your resume and asking for a job. That's a no-no. That's a surefire way to scare people away from getting to know you better. So please refrain from asking until it's appropriate, until your contact has asked you, or until there is an appropriate reason to share your details with them. $1 million question. What should you do after an event? Here are a few tips for you in terms of remaining connected with individuals you meet at recruiting events. Keep in touch. If you tell someone you will email them, make sure you do so. That person that you've met you may have had a great conversation with them or not, but just always keep in mind that people that you meet have a wider network. And so even if you meet someone who may not seem to have a direct relation to your end goal, they may know someone who does. So keep in touch with everyone on a regular basis. If you need any information or any tips on staying organized with this, feel free to make an appointment to see one of our career advisors, and they will help you. Other things you can do is to send fan mail. Who doesn't love to receive an email saying you're great, or you just published an article that was great, or your company was just mentioned in the business section of the New York Times. Those are all great and easy ways to stay in touch with someone. It takes the pressure off, and again, it comes across as less robotic. Consider being a connector, and this is more an advanced networking skill, I would say. But when you survey professionals in your network, after you've met enough people, you can start to connect different people. Again, that helps your people within your network build more trust with you and feel more comfortable with you. Other things you can do to remain in touch with someone and to have a more free-flowing conversation is to do something such as maybe inform them about a book that may be on a topic they find interesting. Inform them about an upcoming event where you will be attending, and again, where you think it may be interesting or helpful for them. And lastly, provide them with any updates that relate to you. So if you've connected with someone and you've landed an internship, it's not a bad thing to email to say, hey, thanks so much. Don't use hey. But it's not a bad thing to reach out and to say, just wanted to give you a quick update. I'll be spending my summer at X firm in X role. Would love to talk to you about it. Do you have any insight? Is this a role that is at your company as well? Have you been in this position? What are some helpful tips that you would provide someone like myself with? Other things to do, a thank you note. And the rule of thumb is to send a thank you note within 24 to 48 hours. We always get the question, well, should I write a note and send it, email a note? In certain cases, especially when you're going through the interview process, if you have a first round interview on campus, recruiters and hiring managers tend to make decisions on that day. So in those cases, it's better for you to write an email saying thank you. In other instances, based on what the circumstances are, you may want to follow up with a hard copy written note, but I think it's pretty acceptable and standard these days to have an email. Other things to think about. Should I send a resume when I'm following up? Only when appropriate, only when asked. Should I ask for a job or an internship when I'm following up? Never. And especially if this is your first or second follow-up with a student, you should not look to ask them for anything. At this point, they still don't know you, and it's a really hard ask. If you've met someone and you followed up with them, and you'd like to schedule an informational interview, I would say the way to do it is a few days after you send your thank you note, you can follow up and ask for the informational interview. Don't try to cram too many things into one email message. So do you still have questions about recruiting etiquette? If so, come see us at the Career Development Center. We can definitely help you. Our office is there to serve students, and we look forward to working with each and every one of you as you need us. Here are just some of the services that our office provides. So we offer career management tools. We initiated last year a career spotlight series, which is still going strong. And for any of you who are out there, we already have our schedule published for the fall. In addition to that, we offer one-on-one career advising. We offer small group career advising sessions. We offer career development workshops and other special programs. So feel free to stop in to see us or make an appointment through Career Path. Thank you.